The rain hammered against the cracked windows of Ban Thammasat University's abandoned East Wing, its rhythmic drumming echoing like ghostly footsteps through the empty corridors. Chloe tightened her grip on the flashlight, her breath quickening as the beam cut through the dust-filled air, illuminating faded lecture notes still pinned to corkboards, as if time had stopped decades ago. She had sworn to her friends this would be just a silly dare, a harmless night of urban exploration before graduation, but deep inside, she knew the whispers about the East Wing weren't just student folklore. She had heard them herself in the dormitory, soft, pleading voices in Thai, calling out names that no longer appeared on any school roster. The legend said the building was shut down in 1987 after a fire killed 7 students during a late-night study group. No official records mention the incident, but every night, the security guards claimed to hear pages turning, footsteps pacing, and the faint smell of burning books wafting through the halls. Chloe told herself it was nonsense, but the moment she stepped inside, her skin prickled with that undeniable sense that she wasn't alone. Her friends, Mek, the thrill-seeker with a video camera, Dao, the skeptic who rolled her eyes at every creak, and Niren, the quiet literature student, were somewhere ahead, their voices faint under the storm. "Hurry up, Chloe." Mek's voice called from around the corner. But when she reached it, the corridor was empty, except for the lingering sound of a door swinging shut. She followed it, the beam of her flashlight jittering with every step, until she found herself in the old library. Rows upon rows of ancient wooden shelves loomed over her, their books swollen with moisture, their titles faded to ghosts of ink. At the far end of the room, a table had been set for 7 people, 7 chairs pulled neatly into place, 7 cups of tea, steam curling from them as if someone had just poured them moments ago. Chloe froze. The cups weren't dusty. They were clean, porcelain white, their handles still warm to the touch. She whispered her friends' names, but no answer came. Only the sound of pages turning somewhere deep in the stacks. She should have turned back, but the sound drew her forward like an invisible thread. She weaved between the aisles, the air growing colder with every step until she saw a figure sitting at a desk, long black hair falling over a white uniform blouse, her hand flipping through a charred book. "Dao," Chloe whispered, relief flooding her voice. But when the figure turned, the skin on its face peeled away in wet, curling strips, revealing hollow sockets where eyes should be. The mouth opened in a silent scream, and in an instant, the lights in the library flared, then died, plunging her into complete darkness. Chloe stumbled backward, the flashlight clattering to the floor, its beam rolling wildly until it stopped on a pair of bare feet, standing inches from her. The toes were blackened, as if burned. Slowly, she raised her gaze and found herself staring into the eyeless face again, this time dripping soot and ash onto the floor. A voice, cold and brittle as glass, whispered in Thai, "You came back." Her scream tore through the silence, and she bolted blindly toward the exit, only to find herself in a completely different hallway. The library was gone, replaced by lockers she didn't recognize, their metal doors dented and rusted. She ran, each step echoing unnaturally, until she collided with Mek, who looked pale and shaken. "They're not here," he panted, gripping her shoulders. "I can't find Dao or Niren. I've been walking in circles." The camera in his hand was still recording, its little red light blinking. On the tiny flip screen, Chloe caught a glimpse of what he'd filmed. Her, standing perfectly still in the library, speaking to no one, even though she remembered seeing the girl. In the footage, there had been no table, no teacups, no figure, just her, alone in the dark. They tried to leave, but every hallway they entered seemed to twist back to where they had started. Doors that should have led outside opened into classrooms filled with smoke, where unseen hands scratched math problems onto chalkboards before wiping them away. Somewhere in the distance, Dao's voice called for help, followed by the low, desperate sobbing of Niren. But the closer they moved toward the voices, the more the building seemed to shift, forcing them deeper into its heart. At one point, they stumbled into the old science lab, where dozens of preserved animal specimens floated in cracked jars. As Chloe's flashlight passed over them, each animal's head turned toward her, their eyes following her movements. One jar, larger than the rest, held something human, a severed head with a faint smile that matched the portrait of the university's first dean hanging outside the lab. The smile widened, and the head whispered something neither of them could understand. By the time they found Dao, she was sitting cross-legged in the center of an old lecture hall, her hands pressed tightly over her ears. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't move, her wide eyes fixed on the empty professor's podium. When Mech touched her shoulder, she gasped and clawed at him, screaming, "Don't let her see me." Before Ploy could ask who she meant, the doors slammed shut, the windows blackened, and from the shadows behind the podium, a tall woman stepped forward. Her long hair was wet, dripping onto the floor, and her uniform was scorched in places. She looked at each of them in turn, her smile slow and unnatural. "Class," she said softly in Thai, "is back in session." The rest of the night blurred into a spiral of terror, shadows that moved independently of their bodies, staircases that descended endlessly, walls that whispered their names. Mech's camera battery died just as they reached what looked like the front entrance. But when they pushed the doors open, they found themselves back in the library again, the teacups waiting, now filled with something dark and metallic smelling. One by one, the chairs scraped backward, as if invisible students were rising to greet them. And somewhere, far away yet impossibly close, the fire alarm began to wail, just as it had on the night of the fire 37 years ago.